Hello, my name is Daniel Giles. I'm in the Theology and Science course from 4:20 to 7:20 on Thursdays, and today I will be discussing Chapter 6, Can Chemistry Explain Life, from the book Science and Faith by John F. Haught. The three perspectives discussed in the chapter were reductionism, contrast, and convergence, which I will discuss in depth in the following slides. The structure of this presentation is as follows. I will first describe the definition and implications of what those definitions really mean for each perspective. Then, I will argue in favor of the convergence perspective in three parts. I will first demonstrate the issues with reductionism and contrast perspectives, and finally provide support for convergence. So, as stated by the quote, life is reducible to chemical processes, and chemistry is in turn reducible to physics. Essentially, reductionism believes that all of life, including our behaviors, can be completely reduced to physical laws. This means that there's a chain of understanding that can be traced back from our social interactions and psychological behavior all the way down to the behavior of atoms and quarks. Science is intended to demystify the universe by exhausting all of the knowledge that can be obtained, and at that point, humans will be able to explain all of life in terms of chemistry and physics. Vitalism is the idea that a mysterious or divine force is needed to convert a non-living entity to a living being. Since reductionism believes that all life is based off of physical principles, it firmly rejects this idea. Rather, it believes that living beings are simply a product of physical laws. Since even our thoughts and feelings can be described by the interaction of atoms and the behavior of quarks, there is no other method of understanding that is necessary to understand the nature of the universe. Therefore, it rejects theology as a viable means of understanding the world in any way. Additionally, since it is the objective of science to exhaust all of our knowledge, it claims that it is in fact possible to understand everything through science and science alone. Finally, since everything can be reduced to physical laws, reductionists do not believe in the existence of God. Contrast accepts all scientific discoveries, though it firmly rejects reductionism because it limits itself to only one mode of understanding the world, being scientific analysis. Instead, contrast focuses on a layered explanation to obtain a more well-rounded explanation of the world. Each layer is distinct from each other, and they do not conflict with one another. To explain this better, let us look at an example. Right now, you are listening to my presentation. One layer of explanation of why you are hearing my voice is because an electrical signal is being sent through your speaker, which produces sound waves. Yet another reason is because I sat down and took the time to make a video presentation for this class. Or because to fulfill my core requirements, I am taking a course in theology and science, which requires me to make a video presentation. All three reasons do not conflict with one another, and rather serve as layers of explanation that enhance our understanding of why you are hearing me talk. We cannot understand the universe in its entirety through analysis alone. We need multiple explanations to understand a single item or event, meaning that science is not an all-powerful method to obtaining knowledge because it cannot provide us with all the information we need to understand a topic. Furthermore, if we extend the idea of later explanation to theology and science, both can be equally correct and not conflict with one another. For example, one could accept scientific physical events such as the Big Bang Theory and also believe that God created the universe. Convergence side with contrast in that it requires a layered explanation to understand life and the universe. However, it attempts to look deeper, trying to connect those layers and arrive at a deeper understanding of life in doing so. And it attempts to paint a picture of life in the form of a currently unfinished story. The main point stressed by convergence is the difference between living and non-living things, in that living organisms are able to strive. Let us look at an example. As a human student, I strive to do well in this class, which is why I'm making this video. However, my laptop, which is indeed aiming to perform the same function of making this video, does not strive for anything whatsoever, and physics encounters difficulty in explaining why. While science is useful in enhancing our picture of life, it cannot tell us what life is actually about. We need to look at multiple perspectives of the world outside of the scope of science to realize meaning in life. By this perspective, the role of faith in understanding life is to keep an open mind towards the coming future and perhaps an end to life's story. Therefore, it accepts the possibility that the universe is building towards some sort of climax. Lastly, this perspective holds that our lives are meaningful, though we just don't know what this meaning is yet. One day we may understand why they have meaning far into the future, but for now our goal is to continue to put together a full picture of life. Now I will go into my personal position, showing why I side best with convergence by displaying the issues with reductionism and contrast perspectives and providing support for convergence. There is plenty about the universe that we do not yet know, and so it is impossible to conclusively state that the answers do not lie with a theological approach to understanding. Reductionism often tries to glean too much from scientific discoveries. In the case of Watson and Crick discovering the double helix structure of DNA, this discovery is taken by reductionists to mean that life is merely DNA. But while it is true that all humans are made up of DNA, the discovery of DNA by itself does not explain human behavior and our social interactions. There is a chain of understanding that needs to be fulfilled connecting DNA to our behaviors. While there are many situations where it seems that explanations of life can come from both a theological and a scientific perspective and not conflict with one another, this perspective completely refuses to place theology and science in competition with one another. If this is the case, then what happens when they are extremely clearly at odds with one another? It either has to accept one explanation or the other, because it does not make logical sense to believe both. Contrast views reductionism as being an extremely simple theory because it reduces all of life to physical laws. However, reductionism is not actually, by my view, at all a simple theory. It is just based on a simple principle that everything can be reduced to physics. On the contrary, the simple basis provides for an extremely complex task of connecting physical laws all the way to social behavior in a vast chain of understanding. Convergence seems to best recognize our lack of knowledge. Because of this, it advocates for many methods of understanding life rather than just one limited scope of scientific analysis. Yet at the same time, it recognizes that the information science has contributed to our understanding of the world is truly invaluable. Furthermore, this view is very hopeful. The emphasis it places on faith to keep an open mind to changes in our assumptions, and the view of the world keeps us looking to the future, realizing, unlike the other two perspectives, that while in the present we may not understand the meaning of life, it is possible that we will in the future, and that we must wait and see. I appreciate the story-like perspective that convergence attempts to create of the universe, because, unlike the contrast perspective, it attempts to connect each layer of understanding to create a fuller picture of life. Finally, it attempts to show us the true difference between living and non-living things, and that living creatures have the distinct ability to strive towards something. Thank you very much.